you want to prune your hydrangeas so that you can have gigantic, beautiful blooms just like these. Do not get this wrong. It is hydrangea pruning season here in the Intermountain West. I garden in Utah, Zone 7A, and I generally prune all of my hydrangeas in the fall. I've had way better success with that. They grow bigger, they grow better for me. The snow doesn't crack them. It doesn't stress out my husband. I like pruning in the fall. This fall, couldn't get around to it, just couldn't get it done. So we are gonna head out. It is early spring and we're starting to have a false spring here. And now is a great time to get things pruned. Let's go. If you're looking for the supplies I use, make sure that you check out my links below. I have everything linked for you, especially this guy. I mean, we're not supposed to pick favorites, but I do just a little bit. If you need a tip on how to store these electric pruners closed, see how they're open right now? You do the trigger and then you slide the battery pack off and then it'll stay closed. I keep my battery pack separate from this because there's kids here. So I don't like to have them stored together and certainly not on, but that's how I keep it a little safer around the house. You have to know what type of hydrangea you are pruning. So we need to talk about this really quickly. If you have no idea and you can't figure it out, the best thing to do is nothing at all. Just don't prune it. Just cut off the old blooms and stop there. And then hang out in the summer, see what it's blooming like, start making some guesses, and then maybe you can figure it out. I've been keeping these sad hydrangeas around. These are perennials in some parts of the country, but not here in Utah. But what I want to show you are a few things on this hydrangea. I grow these as annuals. I absolutely love them. You can see in these pictures here how incredible they looked all season long. I got these before Mother's Day in May. So let's talk about this guy. When you hear people talk about hydrangeas having old wood blooms, this is the bud that it set last season. Now these, we're just gonna pull this off, are still a little bit green inside. Would they bloom? Maybe. Have I kept mine and had them bloom? Yes. They were teeny tiny little Barbie doll size blooms and they were fine. So if you have the perfect spot for this, up here in the open on my porch is not ideal and not perfect. This is the kind where you only want to remove this top bloom. That's really all you need to do. And then you can cut it back to this first set of buds. If you cut anything lower than this, you're actually cutting off the blooms. So keep that in mind. Another way to tell if you don't know, you can look at the distance between the stem and the leaf. And if it's shorter like this, it could possibly be the type of hydrangea you don't want to hard prune, like I am doing on my other hydrangeas today. I hope that makes sense. Let's go look at some more. The reason that particular hydrangea is not a perennial here is because it's not cold hardy enough for my zone. Now this beauty right here is a panicle hydrangea. And can you see how it's a more pointy shaped flower structure? Let's just pop that off. There we go. Panicle, it's kind of like a foxtail. This does great in a high desert region. I absolutely love these. This is just an original limelight hydrangea. And they do fantastic here in the full sun. This is a southeast facing flower bed and mine have gotten really tall. I believe this is starting their 6th summer for me. They grow a little bit slower here than they do in other parts of the country, but I don't really think they're that slow. I just know if you live in the South in Georgia or somewhere, they can grow this tall in, a summer or two. Here, it might take you 3 or 4 years, but they look fantastic. And what I'm going to show you today is how to get your blooms to go from this to this. That's all you got to do. And it's a big difference. Like, that's pretty crazy. I didn't prune one of my bushes all of the way. I left some of it unpruned because I wanted to be able to show you the difference, because sometimes people are like, those are different bushes or different whatever, but these are from the same plant. One side that was pruned, one side that was not pruned. Don't forget your sun protection. Look at my new hat. And water. Close enough. We're going for it. I stayed up way too late last night. Out we go. Now this is another panicle hydrangea, and you can see there's some spots that have tiny little shrimpy blooms, and then you can see the parts where I pruned it really well. We're for sure gonna take off anything smaller than a pencil or that's out in the way. A lot of these are just small, dinky little things. And you can see here, a lot of these are just small, wimpy things. You can see where I made my cuts last season. And this season, I'm actually gonna go from where I made the cut last year. I like to keep them, so here's a Y right here, and then I went up one node and did another. This year, I'm gonna go up another node and start making my cuts right around there. I'm gonna make this one here. All right, now you can see this is pruned. I'll go through and take out anything that's twisty and weird, like this and like this. We don't need those. And I will clean up quite a bit inside of this structure. This whole thing is gonna come off because it just is in the way, and we want nothing to be rubbing. So we don't want anything that's rubbing. There's a couple things here that I need to make some decisions on if I'm gonna leave them or take them off. So you don't want anything, any branches rubbing and crossing. You also don't want, I don't like things that go back into the shrub. So this bloom was going back into the shrub, and I want it to be more of an open vase kind of a look. We're gonna take a little one out. This one's going back in and it's borderline too small. This one's coming off because it's annoying me. That happens a lot with the pruning, so maybe do it on a happy day. So this branch right here, it's going back up into the shrub. So I'm actually gonna take it off down here because I don't like how this whole thing looks. These are amazing. Always use two hands. I'll link them below. If you have problems with your hands and your joints, or if you're doing a lot of pruning, I got these as a recommendation from a friend in the Utah Rose Society, and I absolutely love them. I always keep two hands on them because, you know, safety first. And it cuts things off like butter. It has a little safety latch, but yeah, it's amazing. These things are great. Now, I don't like how this is coming into my walkway. And honestly, I kind of don't like this branch in general. So this whole knob branch, I'm gonna cut off because I don't like it. This whole knob branch, see how it's swooping down? I'm gonna cut that off too. Again, this is a panicle style hydrangea. Do not do this on a hydrangea that you do not know the specific variety. You really have to know that. If you don't know what type of hydrangea it is, just cut off the blooms at the top and leave it to go. But you can see on this one, it doesn't have the big buds like we were looking at. Now, some of these will, you know, grow and do their thing, but it blooms on new wood. So we're gonna make it so that it's gonna put lots of beautiful new growth onto this plant. Okay, I'm gonna put this down. These guys, I'm just gonna prune right here, right here, right here. I love having the winter interest of all of these flowers. So I think part of me got too busy on purpose so that I didn't have time to come out and prune this shrub. I like them. I think they're so pretty. The birds like to hang out. Me and the birds aren't necessarily the best of friends yet, but like, I don't know. They're okay, I guess. So I'm just pruning about 1/4 to 1/2 inch above node on these. And when you have funky ones like right here, one's kind of low and one's kind of high, you just have to pick. Usually I'll trim it at the high one and then I'll look at overall at the shrub and then I can come back and trim it lower. I'm gonna trim it lower. I don't have time today, so we're just gonna be hardcore with all of the pruning and just keep taking things out. All of these tiny little weird twig stick things, get rid of those. They need to go. Because you're gonna have blooms like this if you don't take them off. They don't have a big enough support system to have those big, beautiful blooms. And the plant will just push out beautiful new growth if you take those off. So yeah, the before and after on this will be massively different. And once you've done a few of these, it doesn't take too long to just come through and clean it all up. All right, this branch looks dead and it sounds kind of dead. The way that you can tell is usually you take your thumbnail, but I'm not going to. Today I'm just gonna use my pruners and scrape back a little bit of the bark. And if it's not green, it's dead. If you cut it and it's brown, there's no green, that's dead too. So you can start cutting what you think are dead branches back a little further and then come down until you hit green. And then you'll know if it's dead or alive. So you can see right here is where I trimmed that from. And it is dead inside. That's dead. This still has some green in it, so it's alive. This is probably dead. No, it might not be. It doesn't feel, I can't do it left-handed, hang on. That's also dead. So I'm just gonna keep going down and I might take it clear to the bottom down here. I think that's what I'm gonna do it with the big pruners. They're a little tricky to get inside. So sometimes I have to go get my other ones. Mostly I'm just thinking about two hands on the shears. All right, we got it. Yeah, and that was dead almost all the way down. So good choice, good choice. Okay, isn't she beautiful? She's not right now, but she will be soon. This is my largest panicle hydrangea. This one's actually called the phantom hydrangea, and it has the largest flower buds out of all of my hydrangeas. It's really beautiful, and we love her. I'm debating if I should take this branch out. I'm just gonna do it. This one's kind of close right here. We're gonna do it since I have everything out. 2 hands. That one's kind of weird, but I think we're gonna keep it. I've been told that you want to prune your hydrangeas on a dry day. We are in a very dry, desert, arid climate. So I try to do it when it's not snowing. I did do it once in the snow, just quite honestly, I thought it would make a pretty video and a pretty visual, and I wanted to know how it would do. It did just fine. So if you live in a dry place, I don't know. Take it with a grain of salt. But if you live in a humid place, I would keep that advice in mind because I think the concern is fungus or something. I don't know. The cuts. Do it on a dry day. Just do it on a dry day. You want these cuts to have time to heal over without the excess moisture. I don't even know if that's true. I'm spreading rumors on the internet right now. Do what you will with that information. I keep looking at this and deciding my thoughts. I'm gonna go prune the other one and give you a much better before and after. Here she is in all her glory. So sad and so beautiful. And this is the other standard on the other side of the stairs. I have a matching pair, but they don't. This one has its own issues. They don't really look they look symmetrical enough. It's nature, right? It's fine. So I like the formality of having the double at the top of the stairs, but this one has some issues that I'm going to show you how I correct. You can actually see on this shrub that someone, either me or my husband, I don't know who, cut this side off already, and the lilac is encroaching on the space of the hydrangea as well, so it's kind of bending away from that plant. But we're going to get it pruned up and evened out so it looks normal again. And there's my other one. You can barely even see it. It's so sad when they're pruned. Here's how it ended last season. We've got some things bending down, being super weird. We've got some tiny little scrawny things that need to go. These trees are kind of fun. I actually found them on a whim, and the tags were, I don't want to say mislabeled, but let's say mislabeled because they were labeled as limelights. And as I was growing them that first summer, I kept thinking these are the strangest limelights I've ever grown. The leaves are huge, the blooms are huge, and they were blooming a little bit later. This is the last to bloom of all of my hydrangeas. It's the latest one. And I couldn't figure out what the deal was. And then once fall came and all of the leaves fell off of this plant, I actually found a grower's tag looped around deep inside of the plant. And it said phantom hydrangea. And as soon as I found that tag, everything started to make a lot more sense because when I Googled that plant, I was like, oh, 15-inch flower bud. Yep, that makes sense. This is definitely a phantom hydrangea. And the colors change a little bit different compared to my other limelight style panicle hydrangeas. But like I said, this one is the very last to get any leaves or any buds in the season. It always is every single year, but she's worth it and fan favorite. So I decided to go with a hard prune on this side of this plant as well. And I'm just taking off everything like I did on the other plant, just little by little, getting it all off, getting the weird squirrely things off. This one has a lot more of them than the other one. So I think this next pruning next year is going to really shape it back how I want it more. This time it's going to be beautiful. I'm just being picky, but yeah, that one side by the lilac could use a little bit more bloom power. So I did end up trimming some of the branches on the lilac side because once you prune it, it encourages new growth. So hopefully that will do the trick and bring it out on that side. I'm going to take some branches off this lilac too, which I know is not the proper way, and you are not supposed to prune a lilac right now. You're supposed to do it after it blooms. But this is my garden and I do what I want. So I'm going to prune back some branches on this lilac because it's bugging me. There's a whole bunch of teeny tiny little dumb things on this one. I'm hoping if I take a few things off this lilac tree, it'll have enough sun to kind of start branching out this way a little bit more again. That's my hope. I'm gonna take this off. We'll see. I might prune this back a little more. I'm gonna take this off. It just looks dumb. Good, it's dead. Take that off. All right, not the best, not the worst. It's kind of, it needs a little shaping. There is a very strong part of me that wants to take this whole branch down to a node somewhere in here. See how these two are kind of parallel and this one's bending over in a funky way? I'm gonna prune some other things and I may come back and do that. I might come back and do that in a different video. I'm excited to see how this grows. But this one is looking really good. It has nice Ys. See all the different Ys. And then it has a node or two. I'm actually gonna come, now that I'm filming this, I'm gonna come cut this little piece off on this one. Because I like my Ys to be kind of short at the top. So there we go. This is an area of my garden nobody sees in person. Nobody comes down here. It doesn't go anywhere. It's the stairs to nowhere. But this hydrangea, I kept the tag on here. This is a City Line Venice by Proven Winners, a big leaf hydrangea. Now these are the ones that have the buds forming from last winter and you don't want to prune these. I'm debating if I was gonna prune this right now. I know we're gonna have more snow and I actually want the blooms to help keep a little carpet of insulating snow to keep this warm. Now I should have mulched this up. This is my mom timeout chair where I hide from anyone. And sometimes I sit and edit videos here and do a spider check. Now, I would just come through and barely trim anything off. You know what I think I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna cut these off and I'm gonna leave them around the base of the plant. You can mulch these. It's like, I don't even like that I cut that off. I wanna keep these little green buds protected. So I'm really not gonna do much to this plant at all right now. Once we've passed the danger of having snow, which we won't for honestly, probably 6 more weeks, then I can come in and do a little bit more on this. So I'm gonna keep this as is and I'll show you a close up, a little bit more of what I'm looking at to know this is the wrong kind of hydrangea to be pruning. So I can tell that it has a rounded bloom and I can see the little green buds already forming on a whole bunch of the branches. Can you see them all in here? So these are your only blooms because this, I don't believe this particular one, this is a new one for me. Actually this one might bloom on both a little bit, but I know that it does really well. Let's just read the tag. So the tag on this particular hydrangea says no pruning needed. We know I'm gonna come out here and flake off these crusty bits, but honestly, you shouldn't. Fight the urge, let it, Mother Nature do its thing. It even has, you can see some new shoots coming up from the bottom. So exciting. This is a really beautiful plant. I don't know that I have any pictures of it in bloom, but pretend. That is exactly what it looks like. It won't turn blue in my area because my water and my soil is not the right pH for blue shrubs. So mine all turn pink, but luckily I love pink hydrangeas. But this one is really, really pretty and it's tiny. It just stays 1 to 3 feet. So it's just a nice little guy for the corner. Now the City Line Venice hydrangea is not a full sun hydrangea. It needs part shade. It's in a lot of shade. There's a bunch of sun. You can see it's a pretty sunny area where I'm at right now, but not direct sun on this side. Definitely direct sun on that side. The fence shades this from the afternoon sun and it gets a lot of reflected light off a white wall right 2 feet from me. So it gets plenty of sun to bloom, but it's a bright, shady corner down here. I've got to go find something else to do, or I'm going to sit here and pick the leaves off of that just because it sounds really fun. Let's go prune another hydrangea. These are more of the limelight hydrangeas that I love. These are just a classic limelight hydrangea, and you can see how far I pruned them back last year, right down here, and all of these new shoots shot up. Again, I live in a very dry climate, and so water and rain is not as big of a deal. If you live in a rainier place, we have a lot of wind though. If you live in a rainier place, you might not want to cut this back more than a third. I know some of my friends in the south or places that are a lot more humid will keep some of these longer, stronger branches instead of having it shoot up brand new, strong, tall ones every year. But I really like the look and the way that these do. So I'm going to take it back to about 6 inches above where I cut last year. That's the plan anyway. We'll see. If you are a cautious gardener, you might want to wear some gloves. I did see some wasps wandering around while I was out, which is crazy to me because it's still way too cold in my mind for wasps to be out here already, but just keep that in mind. I cleaned up this one pretty quickly. I'm going to show you on another hydrangea that was in the shade. I felt like the sun made it a little bit harder to see, but you can see right here, I clip them to just about where the bottom of my kneecap is on these particular ones. That's kind of where I like to do them the best personally. I know not everyone does that, but that's about where mine fall. And I am 5'6". I cut all the blooms off from this whole area of this limelight hydrangea. So you can start seeing all the tiny little bits that I am gonna prune out of this. So this is the before. This has a ton of little bits, little spaghetti stick pieces that need to come out. I wonder if I just didn't get around to pruning this one last year because this is an excessive amount and it's totally possible that I just didn't even prune it last year. So anything tiny and scrawny, just cut off all the way. This is dead. The before and after on this plant is going to be pretty dramatic. So I like to get the skinny little pieces out first when I'm showing people how to prune because you can see so much better the structure of the plant and what you're left with and which directions you want to be sending the branches. And when you don't have that extra information, visual information, it's just so much more helpful. Prune this to a Y. Get rid of all these skinny things. Just chop them off. I'm gonna chop this whole thing off. Cut that off. This one's gonna be very drastic. That's too close to the ground. I don't like them super close to the ground because quite honestly I worry about mice hiding underneath. And so I like to have a lot of breathing space around the bottom of my back here. Because again, this is the vegetable garden and I don't need any fun surprises crawling up my pant leg. Finally got a place to stand in here now. All right, skinny stuff. Get all that out first. Oh, I should have brought my bigger pruners. That was a mistake. My hands were full and I didn't want to make 2 trips. If you have bigger pruners, I recommend using those. So on these ones that come up with a big branch like this, and you can see I've already made cut at some point right here for these little buds to form branches and come up. And so now I'm just deciding how far up do I want the next Y, here or here. I like to cut it long first cut, and then I can change my mind later. I feel like these are too short to keep. I don't want them. They're just gonna go. This one's growing down. It's gotta go. What's in my way? This. That's gotta go. Like, look at that. Nobody wants that. I don't want this either. That's gonna come off. All right, now here's a shoot coming up from the base. It's kind of leaning in, which I don't super love, but I'm gonna let that come up to about where I made that first Y cut on the other one and make a cut right there. But look how nice and big this flower was on that brand new shoot. That's crazy. I keep these branches and I use them for staking. They're not as sturdy as a bamboo stake, but I use them for staking random things like houseplants and stuff. I cut that off too. That whole thing. I don't like any of that. These are debatable. I don't know. I don't like that shape. I don't know that I want to cut it all the way down here either. This just looks stupid. That's gotta come off. All right, now this is dead. It's all gray and ashy inside of the cut, so we know it's gray. It's dead. I don't love the way this is wiggling up. This one might get pruned back harder than the other one. I don't know. Let's take this off first and see if that evens out the height. I don't know. I might leave it right here. This is dead too. That's also dead. That's alive. That's dead. We're gonna cut it right there. All right, nice open structure. It's not my favorite. That's dead too. Prune, but that's where we're gonna leave it for now. I could honestly take all these little Ys off and just take it down another notch, but I think we're gonna leave it here for right now and see how it does this year. This one's also dead. This area gets really full and these get gigantic and beautiful, which I love because it blocks the view of our air conditioning units. That's why I originally planted these. so I didn't have to look at my air conditioners every time I came into my cutting garden is over that direction, and I really like them. This one's dead too. Take that all the way off. This one's also dead. Yeah, totally dead. Thank you so much for watching. I hope your hydrangeas turn out amazing this year. And if you don't have any yet, you should get some planted. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe. Follow along for more garden tips all season long. We'll see you soon.